When it comes to Conor's stance, when you look at his stance, Conor stands in more of almost like a karate stance, which means your front foot is bladed sideways. And as a southpaw, bladed against another southpaw attacking your leg, it's such a long distance to block that calf kick. So if your foot's pointed straight, it's easy. It's a quick check. But if you're bladed out, it takes so much more time to turn and to block the calf kick. And even if you turn it slightly, it still wraps around and still hits. So it's just nice to see. One, obviously, I'm happy to see the calf kick, the low kick play really well. But to see it used against someone at such a high level and such good fight IQ like Conor just shows how valuable it is. And just before the show, we talked that how Conor's just all of a sudden thought this was a new weapon, you know, and it's just crazy to see that even the most elite are having trouble with it. Welcome back to Bazooka Kickboxing and MMA, another episode here of Building Hurting Bombs. And today's episode, we're going to get into some of the fights that were on this weekend with Conor McGregor. And it doesn't get better than bringing in one of my co-hosts that I do a weekly podcast with, the TSN MMA show, and my co-host, Aaron Bronsteter. How's it going, Aaron?
I'm good, Joe. You know, I think that we've done this so many times that this is on us. We need this video to be good. We need to show that we have the chemistry.
Exactly.
Because it's been about 3 years of us doing podcasts. We've got to give the people what they want here.
Exactly. But you're usually the quarterback, so I'm usually the one catching the ball. But today I'm throwing the passes to you. So we're going to see how you do in the opposite chair.
Well, if you're going to make football analogies, I'm more of like a long snapper.
Okay.
In terms of my athleticism. So that's probably the position that I would take, whereas you could be the quarterback.
All right, we'd be working together, though. Remember, I was a kicker and punter, right? So you'd be snapping, and I'd be kicking those field goals. So it works regardless. There's some chemistry there.
Hey, I'm not telling you I'm any good at being a long snapper. I just think that's probably the position I'm most suited to being in a football capacity.
Yeah, but like after you snap the ball, you got to hit the big boys up front.
Yeah, so maybe I shouldn't be the long snapper. I don't know. Maybe I'll be the lineman at the side, the zebra.
I put on a little bit of weight. Maybe we got to switch roles. You got to be the kicker, and I got to be the one snapping.
All right, I'll take it.
There we go. So what did you think of the fights? I was really excited to talk to you. And usually when we do our show, it's usually a few days after, so we forget a lot. But we're fresh, ready to go. Fights literally happened less than, 12 hours ago?
Yeah, less than 12 hours ago.
So we actually did some predictions, and what I thought was unbelievable is you're probably one of the only people in the world that picked Dustin Poirier to win.
Yeah, well, I just thought that people were ignoring a lot of the things that we know about Dustin Poirier now. You know, everybody sees the replay of that first fight over and over and over and over again in the lead up, and you feel like that's the reality. That's what's got to happen, right?
Yeah.
Dustin Poirier, when he's hit by lefties, he goes down, and Dustin Poirier's been dropped, and all of. But the thing is, Dustin Poirier hasn't been dropped. If you go and look at the stats, he's been dropped by two people. He's been dropped by Conor McGregor and Michael Johnson, two long, rangy lefties. So obviously that part of the matchup is something that has to be considered. He doesn't have the best success against long, rangy lefties that hit him at distance. But he's coached by Mike Brown and some of the best coaches at ATT, and he still was the first time they fought. So it's not like this is a new coaching staff. But the body of work that he has since that first fight, you can't ignore the guys that he's beaten. You can't ignore that he beat Justin Gaethje in just an absolute test of wills. And that Justin Gaethje hits as hard as anybody else in the lightweight division. It's not like he's got pillow fists. I mean, Justin Gaethje, we've seen him put out multiple guys in the first round in succession.
Yeah.
And you see Eddie Alvarez, and Eddie Alvarez becomes a champion. We see how Poirier is able to beat a guy like that. And then the Dan Hooker fight, we saw how Poirier beat Dan Hooker. Now, of course, the Khabib fight. Khabib is kind of an anomaly because he beats everybody. But you also have to remember that he got Khabib into a pretty deep guillotine at a point in that fight as well. And that Conor's kryptonite has been submissions. Now, of course, that's not how it played out last night. But everybody kind of ignored what we know about Dustin Poirier and reverted back to that first fight for whatever reason. A fight that was in a different weight class, was 6 years ago, was two fighters at a completely different stage of their career. These are two guys that are now established elite fighters. Yeah. One of whom has been very busy the last 4 years, and one of them has not. And the one that has not is the one that everybody, for whatever reason, thinks is going to be able to do exactly the same thing as 6 years ago. And obviously, that's not what happened. And from a strategic standpoint, you really have to hand it to Mike Brown and company at American Top Team, because they devised just a perfect game plan.
Oh, that was incredible. I remember us talking about the keys for that fight, and I said Poirier having to pressure, and a lot of people thought that was the wrong strategy because of that laser left hand. But did he get hit with a few good shots? Yeah. But, I mean, he was able to stay collected, use that experience, keep coming forward, and then, just land those big shots. But as soon as Poirier got comfortable in that mid-range boxing, it felt like, Conor really didn't have an answer. He wasn't backing up. Conor did say he did feel an advantage in the clinch, but I don't know, man. Dustin Poirier, just from that first fight to now, bigger, stronger, more durable, able to sit in, Conor's face. I mean, I'm one of those people that, I'll admit that I didn't give Poirier a lot of credit. And, I really should have. And I should have jumped on the train with you.
Yeah, and I think the range is a very good point, because I've been saying this all week, and I don't remember if I said it to you on our show, because I've been doing so many different hits this past week. But I was saying that if a lot of people were saying, if this turns into a firefight, Poirier is going to lose. And I said, not necessarily, because Conor, when he gets into a firefight, he still needs to be at range.
Yep.
Conor has that gift that some of the best fighters have. I think Amanda Nunes is one of the fighters that does this as well. They can hit people at the very end of their punch.
Yep.
And when he's able to hit you from range at the very end of his punch, when he puts absolutely everything into it, that's his primary weapon. But if you can control that range, and like you said, if you can pressure and you can get in close,
it's jamming
and turn it into exactly, and turn it into a firefight where you control the range and you make him hit you at a distance where he's not accustomed to hitting you. And Conor's just a master of finding that range. But if you can take that away from him, and then of course there was the calf kicks, which from a southpaw versus southpaw stance, really Conor said this after the fight, really made an impact, because they were outside calf kicks, and it took all the power off of McGregor's. Like McGregor said that he basically had a dead leg at the end of the event, but took all the power out of his power hand because he was unable to plant. So he did a good job of taking away everything that was vital to that primary weapon, which was the distance and the lead leg, generating the power off the lead leg.
Yep, and even that lead leg, you need that lead leg to be able to manage distance, to stay long, to step and transfer weight, to get the power. I mean, it's just that southpaw versus southpaw, especially when it comes to Conor's stance. When you look at his stance, Conor stands in more of almost like a karate stance, which means your front foot is bladed sideways. And as a southpaw, bladed against another southpaw attacking your leg, it's such a long distance to block that calf kick. So if your foot's pointed straight, it's easy. It's a quick check. But if you're bladed out, it takes so much more time to turn and to block the calf kick. And even if you turn it slightly, it still wraps around and still hits. So it's just nice to see. One, obviously, I'm happy to see the calf kick, the low kick play really well. But to see it used against someone at such a high level and such good fight IQ like Conor just shows how valuable it is. And just before the show, we talked that how Conor's just all of a sudden thought this was a new weapon, and it's just crazy to see that even the most elite are having trouble with it.
Yeah, and I think that the thing that he had discounted was how he would check that from a southpaw versus southpaw stance. I guess they just didn't drill it, right? Because it seemed he basically acted like it was something completely new.
Yeah.
And I think we learned some new weaknesses that Conor McGregor has, which is, that the defense of the leg kicks, because he had said when Poirier moved to the orthodox stance, and he was able to check those kicks, calf kicks from the inside. He had no problem checking those, but from the outside, he didn't really know what to do. And then we also learned that McGregor can't really switch stances, because once McGregor switched to the orthodox stance, once his leg had basically failed him, it was done. Like there was nothing he could do. And he's not the type of guy that we've really ever seen have to switch stances. Yep. But Poirier forced him to switch stances, and he looked like a fish out of water.
Well, I kind of would have liked to seen Conor maybe use his kicks a little bit more. One of the best strikes we see Conor use is a nice long front kick, like he sets things up, bounces a little bit more. Yes, that's taken away from the southpaw, but still Conor using some kicks of his own may have, like that front kick especially, may have kept Poirier off, kept him at range, gave him some space to throw his power shots. I don't know. I just think he knew the strategy wasn't there. He was wanting to pressure. Conor wanted to go forward, and in order to stop that low kick, you weren't blocking it. It was almost had to kind of slip and return. I think would have been the best strategy. But hey, Dustin Poirier, experience, and what Conor said, and it plays true in every combat sport. He didn't have enough time in the octagon to feel comfortable, to feel good. And if Dustin's in there, what was he, 10 times more probably than Conor McGregor? It's just that ring time, I think, played a big difference as well.
For sure. And I asked Conor about that when I spoke to him last week. I said, they say there's no substitute for in-cage time, but could Poirier actually be at a bit of a disadvantage because he hasn't seen all the different weapons that you gathered over the last 2-3 years? And he kind of, shook his head and said, yeah, I mean, there's a lot that he hasn't seen from me. And we didn't see too much, really. I mean, because once Poirier pointed at McGregor and said, I got you with a good shot, that's the same thing that Nate Diaz did. And it worked.
Yeah.
He was in Conor's head very early in that fight. And I don't want to discount Conor completely because Conor won that first round. I think Conor landed the better shots in that first round.
I agree. Yeah.
Poirier acknowledged that he got hit with that big left and that he kind of had a bit of a flash. But ultimately, once Poirier settled into that fight, I think it took him about 2.5 minutes to be like, okay, I took the left. I'm still standing. This is just another guy. I noticed during the fight introductions, he was just looking at his team. He was trying to stay away from it feeling like a big moment and being in there with a guy that's, I mean, not just a fighter, but a celebrity, a guy that's one of the most recognizable people in the world. He really tried to just, once the bell rang and once he went to touch gloves, that's when it became just another fighter.
Yeah.
That's when it was fight time. And once that happened, I think that that's when the momentum kind of shifted, was when after that first minute, that first 3 minutes where he realized that he was just in another fight, that's when it became Poirier's world. Yeah. And he had said to Brett Okamoto afterwards that he felt really flat backstage. He really felt like he wasn't feeling any real emotion. He wasn't feeling, it felt like just another fight to him, but he didn't really feel like energized. But then once he started walking out, once he was in the cage, that's when, he became Dustin Poirier, the fighter, and it clicked in right at the right time.
Yeah, one of the best things I saw from Conor in that fight was actually that lead. It's almost like a lead uppercut jab where he kind of slipped off and he landed that lead hand right down the middle of Poirier. That was his best shot because that's when you saw Poirier get rocked a little bit. He stumbled from those big lead hands from Conor, but that's when the experience, the eyes of Dustin. I mean, Dustin's boxing looked pretty good. He was, out of range, just slipping back, made adjustments when he did get hit. I mean, I think that was one of the most impressive things is the adjustment he made. Conor looked good, slipping, rolling, but, just when that Dustin Poirier power, man, it lands. I'm very impressed with it. I mean, I just have to look back and start giving, Dustin Poirier that credit he deserves. And he said something in that post-fight conference where he's sitting basically at the top of this lightweight division now, especially with Khabib not coming back. He even told Chandler that he thinks he should kind of wait a little bit, kind of earn his stripes before he gets a shot with him. What's your take on that?
I would agree with him. I think that Oliveira with 7, 8, I think he's got 7 or 8 in a row now. He's done what he needs to do to earn that title fight. I mean, I think a win over Tony Ferguson in the way that he did it is more valuable than a win over Dan Hooker. Okay. I don't think that Dan Hooker has beaten any of the elite guys in this division to be put in that top tier.
Yeah. And
I think Ferguson was in that top tier when both Gaethje and Oliveira beat him. And the way that Oliveira beat him, to me, just shows the improvements that he's made. And Oliveira is a tough matchup for anybody. I actually think Poirier is probably the worst. I think I said this to you on the show this past week. I think Poirier is probably the worst matchup for Oliveira because of how durable he is.
Yeah.
And if he can last 2-3 rounds with Oliveira, that's when I think Poirier again can get that momentum. But I think that would be an amazing fight for the title. And I kind of agree with him. We've now seen, how long did it take him to beat Dan Hooker? About a minute.
Yeah.
So, I mean, we've seen a minute from him in the UFC, but we also can't discount his great resume with Bellator, right? Like, I mean, this guy has proven to be a top level fighter in the lightweight division, but I kind of can't blame Poirier for saying, listen, I've worked for years and years and years to earn this spot at the top of the division. And this guy's going to come in. He hasn't really had any big wins in recent years. Comes in, has a win over Dan Hooker, and we should just anoint him as the next guy in line. He goes, I think Oliveira earned it. I think, I'd like to see Oliveira. He was saying that he thinks Oliveira is ahead in the pecking order because he's watched Oliveira for 10 years try to get that consistency to finally get to this point in his career, and now he's here. He basically has a very similar career to Poirier, like a bit of on and off at featherweight, then coming to lightweight, and a hiccup here or there early, and then he got that momentum and got that consistency and became one of the top guys in the division just through hard work. And I respect that. I think that Poirier respects that as well. Yeah.
So we'll put your Mick Maynard, Sean Shelby hat on. What's next for Dustin Poirier? I personally think I would honestly put maybe Charles Oliveira against Chandler. The winner gets Poirier is probably my bet. I think Poirier should be able to sit back and let those guys fight for a contendership.
Well, after the event, I put this out. I said, this is how I would book the division. I'd do Poirier versus Oliveira for the title.
Okay.
I do Chandler versus Gaethje, because Chandler versus Gaethje
Yes,
is as big of a home run fight as you can make. I mean,
Nice.
that fight has to happen.
Yep.
Now that he's in the UFC. I said
Especially
McGregor
after that
versus
finish.
Diaz 3.
Yep.
McGregor versus Diaz 3 trilogy. I would book that. And then I'd book like a Ferguson versus Hooker or something along those lines. But I think that fight's a little bit less important when it comes to pecking order. You got a bunch of guys that are now in that next tier. You got Hooker, you got Ferguson, you got RDA. I think Islam Makhachev, if he can beat Drew Dober, kind of enters that kind of that area code. You've got the Ally Quintas of the world, who I think are even probably a tier below that. So I think that if we're looking at just that top tier, and I don't necessarily have Nate in that top tier. I don't think that Nate really has earned a spot in the top tier at 155. When was the last win he got at 155, right? I don't even know who it is. Honestly, I don't. Because the fight against Pettis was 170. Masvidal, the loss was 170. The fights against Conor were 170. But I still think that you want to put Conor in a situation where he can get a win. Because you need to get that trilogy fight.
Yep.
And we've seen him beat Nate. And I think at 155, he holds some advantages over Nate. And if he can't beat Nate, then maybe he's done. I mean, maybe we just don't see Conor McGregor compete after that, because if he's not able to beat whoever they put in front of him next and he loses 2 in a row, maybe the game has just passed him by during this time, and his business interests and all the other stuff he's got outside of the cage prevent him from being the elite fighter that we're used to.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about it a lot, and I always bring up the why. A fighter needs the why. And I mean, what made Conor McGregor that vicious animal, and I mean, what's making Dustin Poirier so vicious now and these top guys is the why. And I think when your why kind of gets weakened a little bit, that hunger, like Conor McGregor wanted the boats, wanted the money, wanted the whiskey, wanted all this stuff. Now having it, you do need to have a little bit of hunger there. There needs to be a little bit of that, that crazy mentality still. And I think when you have so much, it's really hard to dig deep. I mean, I don't have what he has, so I can't speak for him, but it just seems that when you have so much and you're losing the hunger and he's there with his children, maybe the why now for Conor has to be providing for his son and his new children and his wife and his family, but just that killer why maybe isn't there as much for him. I know he wants to be the best of all time, the 2-time double champ and this and that, but I mean, maybe he just needs to be a little bit more realistic now where he is in life.
Yeah, and I think there are 2 things that you can look at. One would be Poirier. Maybe Poirier becomes his why, getting revenge for that loss.
Yep.
And the other could be maybe the welterweight championship. I think that he was at a size disadvantage against Poirier, so I'm not sure how realistic that would be, especially with such a grappling heavy division at 170. But maybe the goal becomes trying to become a 3-division champion in the UFC, the first one to ever do that. That being said, I think he would be a deficit against a lot of these 170-pound fighters. So maybe Poirier becomes the why, getting that third fight with him.
Yeah, I mean, with Khabib not there, I thought Khabib would have been the why, but Khabib didn't look interested. I mean, I personally didn't like this whole Dana White announcement. Oh, Khabib, special announcement. Come on the broadcast. We're going to get you all excited about this big Khabib news. And it's like, well, Khabib's going to watch and he's going to see if anything excites him. Like, he didn't give us this big announcement that they made it seem to be. And now with Conor losing, I mean, I don't think Khabib wants to come back. And I don't think he really should, because he made a comment. He's like, come on, Dana, like, none of these guys are at my level. And you got to kind of agree with him, right?
Oh, we saw what Poirier did, and we saw how he beat Poirier, right?
Yeah.
So who is at his level? I mean, Michael Chandler was lobbying for it really hard after the fight. He's like, I would bury Khabib. I want Khabib to come back. I want to prove that I'm better than Khabib. But I don't think Khabib needs to prove he's better than Michael Chandler. You mentioned the why. I don't think Khabib has that why. I don't think there's anything he has left to prove that is going to make his legacy any better. 30 is just a number. He doesn't need to be 30-0. It's just a number.
Yeah,
29-0 is just as valuable as 30-0.
Yeah, his honor and his family. I mean, you got to really respect that. I mean, even like with me, I mean, would I have wanted to compete again? For sure. But I mean, a lot of times you don't, because you think about your family and you think about the risk that you put them on. So I kind of respect that decision from Khabib to go out on his own terms. He's not getting all this money, and the attention is not even enough to get him in. So I do really respect that.
Yeah, same with me. And I agree with you kind of on that decision. There was no decision.
Yeah.
Like,
kind of
we're going to announce Khabib's decision on ABC. It's like, well, the decision is there's no decision. Yeah. But there kind of was a decision. The decision was basically to stay retired unless something absolutely blew him away. And I don't think that there was anything that could have happened short of maybe a 5-second knockout of Dustin Poirier that would have really satiated his appetite to come back.
What now? Let's take a quick look at the co-main event. Did anything stand out? We all know that Chandler came in, got that early finish, big power. But did something surprise you? Was something did something arise that you didn't think would have came out of this fight?
I didn't think Chandler was going to come out guns a-blazing like that. I mean, you need to be able to keep yourself for 3 rounds against Dan Hooker. You need to really be prepared for a 3-round fight against Dan Hooker. But he seemed like he looked like a man possessed, honestly. He really came out there throwing big, heavy shots right from the outset. And I just think Dan Hooker hadn't seen anything like that before. Yeah. I don't think Dan Hooker expected that from Chandler. And when you have a shorter, stockier guy like a Chandler going against a really tall guy like Dan Hooker, there's always that, they call it kind of tall guy defense. That can always come into play because you're getting hit from below. And it's harder to defend that sometimes. You can probably explain that a little bit better than I can, but I think that's basically what happened in this fight. I think that the height actually ended up being a disadvantage for Hooker. Yeah,
a lot of tall guys, when they defend, they're not used to getting hit, because a lot of guys who don't throw those overhands, or they defend those punches by pulling their head back, right? So it kind of leaves their chin exposed by pulling their head back like that. But the key to that finish was actually Chandler's footwork. If you watch Chandler's finishes, he does something called shifting. So if he's in an orthodox position, he'll throw his punch and shift his stance to end up in a southpaw. And then he'll throw again from a southpaw, which ends him into his orthodox position. That's called the Dempsey roll. That's an old school boxer. Jax Dempsey used to use the Dempsey roll. And if you watch Chandler's footwork, it was just spot on. He threw the right hand, shifted to southpaw, then threw that left hook, which got him the finish. So he used that shifting footwork to close the distance, to get the finish, to land his power. He didn't just throw a single, he threw it as a double, 2 punches to follow. And it was just perfect closing distance footwork, high level IQ. I mean, it was just a beautiful setup. And when you look at the subtleties of how he did it, it's just that much more impressive to me.
And I was saying all week that I thought that Hooker was going to win that fight, but if Chandler won that fight, I'd be very impressed. Yeah. Because I think that the difference in level between the top guys in Bellator and the top guys in the UFC, I think that like the top 2-3 guys in every Bellator division is probably a top 10 caliber guy in the UFC. Mm-hmm. But to get to beat the guys that are at the really high level in the UFC, especially in the lightweight division, which is such a shark tank, I think that for him to do that after not having a really valuable win over the last 4 years, and against no disrespect to the guys that he's beaten, like Sidney Outlaw, the recent win over Ben Henderson, Goichi Yamauchi, like these are good fighters, but we're not talking about top 10 UFC caliber right now. So I think for him to come out there and make that kind of a statement, I think it might be the best debut that we've ever seen, just from start to finish. If you look at who he was up against, the spot on the card that he was on, the main co-main event spot on the Conor McGregor card, the way that he did it, his post-fight interview from start to finish, and then even his post-fight press conference from start to finish, I don't think that anybody has raised their stock in their debut as much as Michael Chandler did yesterday.
Yeah, that was the point I was going to make. I mean, he just felt like he's been there forever. Like you can see he's, it's one thing to be a UFC veteran, but he is a fight veteran. I mean, you got to think Bellator has put him as their poster boy for many years. He had to put the promotion on his back. He had to speak for them. He had to, do a lot for the organization. When you fight in the UFC, if you're not one of the big boys in the organization, you're just one of the fighters around. So you don't have to do more of that promotional role. But I think Chandler having that experience, when he came in, the way he talked on the mic, how intelligent, how well-spoken he was, how clear he was on the mic, how demanding he was of who he wanted. His post-fight was a little bit of a Chael Sonnen kind of WWE approach, but he still was confident, spoke well, just confident. He definitely is, in my eyes, not only a fight veteran, but you can almost put him as a UFC veteran, the way he, held himself. Looked very professional.
I agree with you. And he's the type of guy that has just a ton of charisma. I spoke to him, and I had never interviewed him before. Came away very impressed with his answers.
Oh,
and
beautiful.
I asked him some tough questions. Yeah, I asked him some tough questions, too. Like, if you remember, a couple of weeks ago, he was on social media, and it was right after the thing at the Capitol. And he said, if anybody wants to meet me join me on Parler and watch, come to my account on Parler.
Okay.
You can do that. And Parler was, of course, shut down because it was considered to be a place where the people that were planning this whole thing that happened at the Capitol were meeting, and a lot of people kind of related to being, a bit of an extremist social media platform, or at least a very far right leaning social media platform. And I asked him about it. I came out and said, listen, a lot of people were wondering why you did this, or how were your posts any different on Twitter than they were on Parler? Were they politically oriented? I was like, I didn't get a chance to really see it, so I'm just curious why you were driving people there. And he gave me a really thoughtful answer about it, and he said, I don't believe in the idea of silencing people, and I don't necessarily believe that's what Twitter and these social media platforms were doing. I mean, they were shutting down accounts that I think they felt were inciting violence, which I believe is, of course, a reasonable reason to do that. Yeah. But he was explaining, his rationale for why he wanted to go on this. He wants to reach as many audiences as possible. He's on a bunch of different platforms, he says. It's not just Twitter. He's on lots of social media platforms. He just wants to grow his fan base as much as possible. And he said, when I'm on that platform, I'm writing the same stuff as I am here. I'm posting pictures. I'm talking, it's all MMA related. And he said he didn't agree with what happened at the Capitol, but it was a hard question to answer. And he gave me a really well thought out answer. And not just that, he also said, well, thank you for asking that question. I'm glad I had the chance to clear that up, because a lot of people are jumping to conclusions. Yeah. So, that's about as good of an answer as you can give somebody when you're pressed on a subject like that. And I just thought I came away very impressed with his, with just how much resolve he showed when he was answering any question that I threw at him. He just seemed so composed, and I think he's the type of guy that could be a politician down the line. He's a very smooth guy. He's a charming guy, and he's very well spoken and very charismatic.
Yeah, I mean, I just love seeing that too, and just the personality he brings outside of the ring as well. I mean, him and his wife adopted a child. I mean, when he talks about his child, how much he loves him, it's just, I think he's one of those good guys in the sport that you almost see like the Wonderboys, and he's just one of those good people that you kind of want to follow. So it's kind of nice to see him on the bigger platform. I think he deserved the opportunity to showcase how good he is. And he's taking, every shot that he can. So I'm very impressed. I'm excited to see him in the UFC. And I would like to see maybe some more of those Bellator guys, like the Limas, come over, and maybe we can get some more fun fights in these crossovers. But I can't see that happening.
I want to see Pitbull. Patricio Pitbull in the UFC is what I want to see. Because I like him versus Max Holloway. I think you got the two. And I don't want to take away from Volkanovski, or him versus Volkanovski even. Like, those are, I think, the three best featherweights in the world right now. Yeah. I don't think that Patricio Pitbull gets enough credit. I mean, he beat Michael Chandler in the first round, knocked him out at 155 pounds. This guy he's just an unbelievable fighter. And I think that he's probably more of a bantamweight than anything. He could probably make 35 and become a 3-division champion in Bellator. That's how good this guy is. But he's the guy I would love to see in the UFC. I don't think it'll happen. He's been like he's a day one Bellator guy, basically. Yeah, and he might be one of the very few day one Bellator guys that they still have left.
Yeah, I mean, he was a company guy, and I'm surprised that they let him go the way he did, but I'm happy they did. And now this lightweight division in the UFC is just stacked. I mean, it's in all combat sports. That lightweight division is, even in kickboxing, it's just a division to watch in combat sports.
And Bellator let him go because of who he is, because of he came to them and was forthright with them and said, I really want to see what I can do in the UFC. I thank you guys so much for everything that you've given me over the years. And he's very grateful to them. And it was kind of an amicable parting of ways, because they kind of wanted to let him spread his wings in the UFC and test himself in the UFC. And you could see why Dana White came away so impressed with him on their first conversation. And apparently they talked on the phone, and Dana White called Hunter Campbell afterwards and said, we got to sign this guy, because Chandler just says all the right things. And, I think that he's got a big future, although we do have to remember his age. I think he's 35, right? And when you're talking about like the top guys in the lightweight division, maybe it might be a little too late for him, although Dana White said he thought the next fight to make, just off the top of his head last night, would have been Poirier versus Chandler for the championship. So he's right in there now. He's right in the mix. He could become the UFC champion one day, and I didn't think that was going to be possible. Yep.
Chandler, what did he say? He goes, I'm not here for a long time, but I'm here for a good time. So I thought that was perfect. His age, he knows what he's coming to do. He's not here to be a journeyman. He's coming for the title, going after it. And I mean, he knows what he wants, and he's on a mission. But do you think this win, actually, you think Bellator is sitting there a little bit happy that he got this win, showing that, they're a legitimate league, their champions can fight at that level?
Yeah, for sure. Absolutely. I think that they like seeing their guys have success in the UFC. I mean, look, Eddie Alvarez lost his first UFC fight, went on to become the champion. And he was considered to be a Bellator guy, although he did have a lot of experience in Japan from before that. And then you look at Will Brooks, and they had issues with Will Brooks, and they just decided to let him go, even though he was the champion at the time. They decided to let him go, and then he failed in the UFC.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So like it's hit or miss.
I just think we need this competition. I know everybody's sitting here, it's, UFC or the other ones, but I just think it's nice that we've seen guys like Sergio Pettis go to Bellator and do well over there. And then you see even his brother, go over to PFL. You need these leagues to create competition to help with the fighter purses. So, I mean, the more competition, the more money I think eventually these fighters can make. So I'm kind of happy to see that there is more of a competition league with, Bellator and UFC.
Yeah, and I mean, even Gaethje and Moraes coming from World Series of Fighting, like those guys have looked great. Moraes went to a title shot. Justin Gaethje became an interim champion. Like those guys have looked like they're not out of place in the UFC either, right? So you have to look at all of these different factors from outside the promotion. And I got excited watching Michael Chandler walk to the cage yesterday because it's so cool to see someone from a different promotion enter a new promotion for the first time. I get excited about that. I love to see it.
Yeah, it's a different look. It's nice. It just brings that excitement. I mean, I think that's where the excitement of Chandler came in, is like, how good are these guys in Bellator? You want to know. So I think that brought a lot of excitement to the fight. But what about some other fights? Did any other one stand out to you? I'm just trying to think of ones that really
Juliana
got me
Pena
excited.
had a nice win over Sarah McMahon.
Yeah.
She got that kind of late sub in the third round. I thought Joanne Calderwood looked amazing against Jessica Ai. Okay. Just employing so many good Muay Thai techniques during that fight that really, I think, showed that she can still be a top fighter at 125 pounds. I mean, I think she still needs to work on her ground game a little bit. That's what kind of failed her against Jennifer Maia. But on the feet, I think she can hang with. I think a fight between her and Valentina Shevchenko gets a little bit more juice now. I think that's an exciting fight on the feet. But I think if Shevchenko ends up taking her down, that's going to be a problem.
Yeah.
Shevchenko's just so good everywhere.
Yeah. That's just the point. Shevchenko's too good everywhere.
But outside of the main and co-main, it's hard to even remember the rest of the fights because those fights they were so good.
Yeah, that's kind of why I asked you. I was kind of thinking.
Marina Rodriguez, we have to talk about.
Oh,
Marina Rodriguez,
wicked.
That was one of my picks.
Yeah.
I said I hadn't seen enough from Ribas on the feet, and I knew how good Marina Rodriguez was on the feet. Ribas controlled her on the ground in the first round. Then Ribas decided to stand with her, and it was a big mistake because Marina Rodriguez has really, really strong striking. She reminds me a little bit of like Max Holloway. She's long, she's rangy, she's thin, and she hits hard. Yeah. She hits deceptively hard and got the finish. And the odds on her to finish that fight were like plus 1250, something like that, plus 1450.
Because you got to think most of the women's fights, the bet is to go to decision, right? Because you don't see a lot of finishes in the women divisions. But that tall, long, rangy Brazilian frame, man, oh my God, those elbows. I mean, I think the fight should have been stopped when Herb almost kind of got in there.
You mean when he stopped it?
When let's say it as it is. When he did stop it, I mean, it should have stopped there. But, man, the elbow after, her difference in range and weapon, her length, I think she's going to be a tough fight for anybody.
Yeah, and she's looked good against a lot of the top girls already in the division. People just kind of forgot about her, and I didn't understand why. I think they were all blinded by Ribas. And we keep seeing these lines in women's MMA. Like Maria Agapova was like a minus 1,200 favorite against Shanna Dobson, even though the last person she had beaten prior to that had fought at atomweight before, not just strawweight. Hannah Cypress has fought at atomweight before, and that was her big win. She looked great against somebody who was like 2 weight classes smaller than she was, and everybody's like, oh, and it becomes minus 1,200. Rousey against Holm, minus 900. Like, you see these wacky lines in women's MMA where people believe that they're going to be the next big thing, and people just ignore the opponent because it's like, oh, she's going to win, and then she'll fight this person. But it's like, no, you have to look at the opponent. And that was, again, one of my TSN edge picks was Marina Rodriguez because I knew how good she was on the feet, and I just did not know how good Ribas was. And if this was going to be contested at all on the feet, I knew Marina Rodriguez would have the advantage. Yeah,
I mean, I loved when I see good Muay Thai being practiced like that, especially in the women's division. If you can get a finish, I mean, it just looked that much more impressive. So I'm excited to see her. Actually, I met her and her team when I was in Abu Dhabi, so I'm kind of supporting them from the back seats here.
There you go. Yeah, I think she's got a good future. And I thought that she had a future to begin with. She just happened to face a really good grappler in Carla Esparza and lose that fight. But she's won against some really tough opponents prior to that. Yeah, I actually wasn't. I was really impressed with Brad Tavares. I thought did pretty good as well. I mean, Carlos Jr. is so weird, awkwardly framed and big, long arms. Like, that's a weird, awkward person to fight. And Tavares was able to stick to the game and kind of just pop him away. I was mostly impressed with his conditioning. I don't think I've ever seen him look that good in the cage, just in terms of his build.
And having to wrestle a lot too, right? Yeah. I mean, and still be able to strike after that wrestling.
He stopped like 11 of 12 takedown attempts. I just don't understand why Carlos Jr. doesn't move to 205. I've said this for years and years and years. He started his career. Man. He won the Ultimate Fighter at heavyweight, then moved down to 205 for like 1 or 2 fights, and then moved down to 85. He's huge at 85, but if you look at the advantages he would have at 205 from a grappling standpoint, this guy's a world-class grappler. He's one of the best in the world. I think he beat Gordon Ryan. He beat one of the top guys in like actual grappling in recent years. This guy's a wizard on the ground. Go to a division where you can take that people down more easily. Go to 205.
Yeah.
I don't understand it. I never have. He's always been like a real enigma to me because I feel like he's giving up so much. He's cutting a ton of weight to make 185, and he's giving up a lot of his different tactical advantages by being in that division.
Yeah, I actually when I picked my parlay, I actually went with Tavares just because I just felt like Tavares with Ray Sefo being the striker. I always get stuck when I know the coaches are kickboxers. So that's one of my downsides in picking fights. I always pick the kickboxing side. So, I mean, I'm lucky I did pick it, and I'm lucky my bias side worked for that fight. But I know a lot of my friends who we kind of pre-talk fights, a lot of them, thought Carlos Jr. was going to get the win.
I was one of them. I thought Carlos Jr. would get him down and submit him at some point in time. But, man, Tavares looked good, and he reminded us why he's a ranked guy in middleweight.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to think of my other kickboxing bias that I went against this time. Usually I would have went with Dan Hooker just because I like Eugene, Bareman, and City Kickboxing. So I went against it. I know, and it wasn't there. And then that kind of played with my head. I'm like, where is Eugene? How come I don't see Izzy with him? So a lot of things started to connect. And I don't know, and just Chandler was good that night. So kind of my bias helped me this week.
Well, Bareman's actually training Israel because Israel's fights in March. And Dan Hooker's not allowed back into New Zealand until February 21st, right? So Bareman couldn't have afforded to take that much time away from Israel during his camp. And that's why Hooker ended up going with a different set of coaches.
Yeah, and I mean, we'll quickly tell the story here, but you were telling me that you had a pre-fight talk with Dan Hooker. Dan Hooker can't go to New Zealand until February 26th. And then when 21st, and then he has to quarantine 2 weeks in that hotel. So he's not basically getting home till almost mid-March or, week into March, which is insane,
Yeah, that's the sacrifice that he made for this particular fight. And I don't know if he was paid a flat purse for this, but probably not. So losing that win bonus is probably horrible for him.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, as long as you're away, but the opportunity's there, you take it. I mean, at a time like this, I think he took the right opportunity. But, didn't get the win, but that's the way the life is. So when's our next event, Aaron? We got 1 week off, and then we're back at it again, February 6th.
Well, we don't have 1 week off. You've got Glory this week.
I'm going off. You get a week off.
Yeah. Next event is February the 7th, I believe it is, or February 6th. And it's at the Apex. It's Volkov versus Alistair Overeem in the main event. Great co-main event. Frankie Edgar against Corey Sandhagen. So looking forward to that. And then the week after that, it's Burns Usman. I just actually spoke to Burns yesterday. Did a nice interview with him. And, man, he's looking poised. Like, he just looks like – he sounds like he's just not going to lose this fight. It's one of those things that, I mean, fighters can sell you on anything. But, man, I mean, in terms of matchups for Usman, I don't think there's a worse matchup for him in the division than Gilbert Burns.
But you don't think them being training partners will have any influence on this fight?
Well, we talked about that, him and I.
Yeah.
I mean, the former training partners at this point. But him and I talked about that. And Burns said, like, listen, at the end of the day, this is my goal is to become the champion. He's the champion. We understand this. He goes, he said that they have sparred and trained together for years and years and years. So it's not like these guys are just like regular training partners. Like they have a strong rapport, strong relationship. And listen to the interview. I'll put it out this week, but we really delved deep into that subject about having to face somebody that you're really close with, that you're friends with, that you respect. So I think it's worth listening to just to hear his mentality on it because it's very interesting. Yeah,
because if you think who would be a terrible matchup for Kamaru Usman, you would think someone like Gilbert Burns, right? Someone who can sit and crack with full power and a wizard on the ground. Like he's no-gi grappling. He's competing against the world championship is in jiu-jitsu, so and no-gi grappling. So the man knows his stuff on the feet and on the ground. Training with Henry Hoof, we've seen his striking improve dramatically. So he's well-rounded, maybe almost more well-rounded than Kamaru would be.
I think he is. And that's the thing. I think Burns has an advantage on the feet. And then I think if Kamaru starts to grapple with him, like you're on the ground with just the shark, right? Yeah. And I spoke to, when I was talking to him, I mentioned to him, like, your striking looks phenomenal. He goes, a couple of years ago, he says, I think I fell in love with my striking a little bit too much. Beautiful. And I had I had worked too hard on my striking and forgot about my roots. And he was like, I went back to entering jiu-jitsu tournaments, focusing more on my ground game in order to elevate my striking game. Yeah. And I think that really was the adjustment that he needed to make in his career to get him to where he is now.
Yeah, I think just where Kamaru maybe has a slight advantage is against the cage, maybe just being able to grind him, holding him, pinning him against the cage and trying to get some strikes there. But on the ground, it's probably, slight edge, burns on the feet, the power, slight edge burns. So I think Kamaru just has to play the fight in his range to get the win, which is phenomenal at doing, right? That's why he's the champ. So I'm excited for it. And I think it'll play out to a good fight. And I think guys will lay it out there. You don't want to lose to your friend, your ex-training partner. That's an extra motivation. So I'm excited for a nice fight there.
And Burns was saying you should have seen how we sparred over the years. He goes, we've been doing this for free for years and years and years. Like now we're just getting paid. He goes, basically the sparring was very intense and and back when they were in the Black Zillions gym, apparently it was really intense and really strong sparring. So interesting.
And a nice couple $100,000 in each of their bank accounts, which I'm sure will be nice.
Yeah, I can't hurt either.
That kind of helps.
Only one of them's going to leave as a champion, right? And that's got to be hard for both those guys to realize that one of them has to ruin the dream of another person.
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest problem with these big mega camps, right? These mega camps, you always run into situations like that, which, I mean, it's the good thing is you get these amazing bodies like the ATTs and you get all these bodies and training partners, but to me, I'd rather not have that type of training and not have to fight my training partner. That's just my perspective. The last thing I'd want to do is fight someone I've trained with. So, I mean, kudos to them if they have the mindset to be able to do it. It is a sport, but sometimes you have to think nasty in this sport. You got to want to hurt someone, and I don't like to hurt people I'm like and I'm friends with. So, that would be tough for me.
And it was good on Usman to just basically say, acknowledge that Burns was going to be a contender and go and work with Trevor Whitman and Justin Gaethje and work in Denver, and kind of acknowledge that maybe he should get another look with coaches and let Burns stay where he's comfortable, which is a real gentlemanly thing to do. And he's come back since and trained at Stanford MMA from time to time, even at the same time as Gilbert, apparently, because I think his daughter lives in Florida, so he was back with his daughter and wanted to go train. And of course, Stanford MMA he's still affiliated with it to an extent. So, good on them for apparently Gilbert walked right up to him, shook his hand, said, hey, how are you? Didn't make it awkward. And, good on them for being professionals.
There we go. All right, Aaron, we'll stop here, but I just want to thank you, man, for coming on. It's Sunday morning. And tomorrow we're going to catch up and do our TSN MMA show. I'm just happy to introduce you to the Team Bazooka family and all my followers and subscribers. And where can they follow you? Where do you want everyone to go follow you? Because I know you're really big on Twitter and you can watch all the UFCs and your tweets always pop up and I cheer when they pop up. I'm a big Aaron Bronsteter fan. So.
Joe, I'm huge on Twitter, and Jake Paul's very envious of my followers.
Yes,
he's challenged me to a boxing match. I've just said no because I don't punch down, Joe. I only
no. Well, let's be honest. You're going to be training with me. You're going to want to throw the low kicks. You didn't agree to having low kicks in the fight, right? So, we got to compromise somewhere.
It's at Aaron Bronsteter on Twitter. You can follow me there, and you can get to hear the show all over again next on the TSN MMA show. Except this time I'll be throwing the ball.
And make sure you guys follow that. I mean, if you guys like hearing me talk about MMA and UFC, no better place to check me out at the TSN MMA show with Aaron Bronsteter. So thanks, Aaron, and we'll talk tomorrow, my man.
Yes, sir.
All right, so it's good to have my man Aaron Bronsteter on. We've actually been, he said 3 years. I thought it was 2 years, but that man knows more about UFC, MMA than anyone I know. Yeah. His full-time job is calling UFC. He interviews all the fighters. Anything to do with TSN and MMA, he's there every week. You see him on SportsCenter. He does the damn thing for TSN. So happy to be part of the show. We've been doing it for years. So if you like me talking about UFC, my insights, and a lot of times on our show, I will compare my career and stuff to these fights, which kind of makes it a little bit more exciting, I think, anyway. So follow along, and let's talk a little bit, Danny. I leave in a couple days to Glory, and I mean, still sad for you that you don't get to come with us because of this COVID, but it's going to be exciting. There's been a big change in it. Was Jamal Ben Sadiq ended up suffering a back injury, so he got a hernia in his back, which keeping him out for a little bit, which sucked because
really sucks.
That Rico rivalry would have been insane.
I mean, they have a great tournament in place.
Yeah.
I mean, we saw what Richter's did in the last tournament.
Yeah.
The guy's got so much potential, so much talent, and Gergis is always going to bring it. Like, he's going to bring it. So it's going to be good, but it just sucks because Jamal, Jamal's got that. Every time Jamal fights, he's kind of like the Francis Ngannou of, like, Glory Kickboxing.
Yeah,
like
just
that
smash
one
power.
smash, and everyone wanted to see that. It's such a shame. But it's good. This card looks good to me. We'll love to get your thoughts on it as to what you think.
Yeah, the big fun question to me is Rico hasn't been in a tournament since Glory 11. So I fought on the same card as Rico when he fought that heavyweight tournament. It was Glory 11. In his first fight, he fought Gokhan Saki, and then he beat Daniel Guida in the finals.
Yeah,
so he won the tournament finals. And that's you would win a Glory belt at that time, but you became tournament champion. You weren't the world champion at that time.
Oh, okay.
So Glory 11, he became the tournament champion. I was on the co-main event. I fought Kareem Gaji that night. So he ended up being there. So it was kind of cool to see Rico's rise like right on the same night as me, right? So we got to see that. But that was the last time he's been in a tournament. So tournaments in kickboxing were made for contenders. So you win this contender tournament, you get the title fight. So this is why you enter into that format.
So is this a championship tournament? Like
this is just no title is on the line. It's just a
Okay.
heavyweight tournament. So we're making sure because it's not fair for the champion because this is where it's good and bad for Rico, right? Because a tournament, there's so many variables. Because say he fights Hesdy Gerges in the first round, all of a sudden he maybe breaks his hand by mistake, or he takes one shot that rocks him a little bit. The second shot he takes is not going to take as much damage to maybe put him down or to rock him, or he twists his ankle, he blocks a low kick, his shin's banged up, he throws a kick. It's even offensively. Say he throws a kick to Hesdy, and Hesdy blocks it with his elbow. Next thing you know, Rico's foot's blown up. Rico's good with low kicks. He goes, fights Levi Richter's in the finals. Next thing you know, he can't throw his kicks. He's forced to box. So there's a lot of variables, but a good tournament fighter is a fighter who's experienced, who's able to adapt. And I think Rico's style of pressure, wearing guys down, and I think also the guys in the tournament aren't really huge power punchers, maybe outside of Hesdy. I think Hesdy's ability to do low kicks and kick and mix things up could be more, but I think on the other side, the guys seem to be a little bit less experienced, so I think Rico will have a lot of confidence.
Yeah, this is risky in a way for Rico.
Definitely risky.
Because you can be going into the first fight, and you can fight a 3-rounder with Hesdy, and Richter's could, I'm not making predictions, but say Richter's wins in like the first 30 seconds.
Yeah.
Then you're going in beat up with a break in between, so all your adrenaline dumps, and then you got to go in there and fight a guy who's fresh.
But you got to think, though, like even if you're banged up, you got Richter's only 12 professional fights, 12-0, I think, and he's undefeated. He's great, but Rico's, man, you got to think. Look how long he's been here. Like you got to you weigh it out, so it's a little bit better. But Richter's would have never had an opportunity to fight Rico.
Yeah, right.
You got to think there was never an opportunity. So at that point, it's that much of a level and experience gap. And you got to think, look at Richter. He's big, but there's big, and then I say there's Rico big. There's
huge.
Jamal big.
Yeah.
There's different big, heavyweight big.
Yeah.
Then you can say there's Gokhan Saki, then there's Rico big. Then there's Nordin Mahadine. Then you got Jamal Ben Sadiq big. So there's heavyweight has so much range, and I think just that big size. Power, the joints of Rico are just too big, too strong, too powerful, too experienced. But hey, like I said, it's exciting because of the possible variables that can happen.
Right. And what do we know about Richter's opponent, Habibis?
Tariq Habibis is a ONE FC fighter. He's fought a few guys outside of Glory. He's fought Anderson Broderick Silva in ONE. Nice. Which he has a win. He fought Stoica in ONE as well, which is another big name to have. He's a forward pressure fighter, good with his hands, nicknamed the Tank. He comes and he scraps, which is fun. So I think that other semifinal with Richter's and Khabib's is fun because Richter's tall, long, where Khabib's is going to come in and just try to knock him out with power hands. So I think that a lot of people saw Richter's and it's going to be Richter's versus Rico in the finals. Khabib is good, man.
Yeah.
Powerful, aggressive, doesn't step back. You know, he'll go. So I think he'll go to war with Richters, and I think it'll be a tougher fight than most people think.
Nice. So we got a good tournament there. I mean, it's hard to, I mean, I know you're the commentator, so you got to kind of play a neutral stance.
But come on, I would be a terrible commentator to not say Rico should win.
Rico's got quite a bit of advantage there,
of course.
In my opinion. But we'll see. I mean, you never know, right? The other one that actually fascinates me before we get into championship bouts is actually Tavares versus Abena. Because Tavares, in my opinion, looked really good in his last fight.
Yeah.
And Abena is obviously coming off the knockout loss for Pereira. So what are your thoughts on that fight?
I just think I'm a little worried about Abena. He had a broken hand for a while, so I don't know how healed it is. So that's where it is. But both of these guys, I think if they're both fresh, they're both ready to go, it's the perfect matchup.
Yeah.
I think Abena's really young. I think Abena's only early 20s, to be honest with you. But Tavares is a stud, man. Very good angles, head movement, confident, promoted well, managed well. So I think he has on paper maybe that slight experience, but Abena's tough, strong, durable. I think the most impressive thing I seen was how Abena fought Vakhitov.
Yeah,
he did very well.
He did really well.
He did very well, and a lot of people thought he may even won that fight.
Yeah.
I mean, it was very close, but I think Abena's just young. I'm worried about his hand, but I think this is a very, very evenly fought match. I mean, if I had to put a betting line hat on, I would say I'm not going to say who I think would win. I think it's going to be honestly a very close competitive fight. But on a betting edge, you would have to put a slight favorite maybe to Tavares based on age, based on his experience. Yeah. Slight favorite going towards him. But Abena's tough, durable, will sit in the pocket. He fought Pereira, fought Vakhitov. A young kid. Think about that. Think about that. A young kid already has fought the two best in the world, so I'm sure he's learned a lot from there. But the question and answer, just like Vakhitov, when he fights Pereira, the question is, can his hand hold up against a 5-round war with, a scary-ass man in Alex Pereira? So hand injuries is a factor in those fights.
And I know Abena's hungry to get back at Pereira. I know he kind of jabbed back at him after his loss. So,
of course,
there's a lot of motivation there for him.
Yeah, and I'm sure he wants Pereira too. I mean, you got to think Pereira knocked Abena out, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cold.
Exactly.
Cold.
Yeah, and we might as well go into that.
And that was for the interim title too.
Yeah, that's true. We get into that, the merging of the belts, right? Pereira versus Vakhitov. Man, as we're getting closer, what are your thoughts on that?
My big storyline to this was, if you asked me 2 years ago who my favorite fighter to watch in Glory was, Artem Vakhitov. Easy, hands down answer. That was my guy to watch. Barely got hit. Doesn't look like this big, scary guy that, everyone...
And he's nice in real life, too. Like, he's a
amazing,
small,
but killer.
Yeah,
killer.
Yeah.
Boom. Good combinations, good kicks, good boxing, good distance control, good head movement and defense. So he's just overall so skilled and talented, mixes levels. So I love that style. Like, I'm not someone gonna say you're the best. If you only box and kickboxing, you're a good boxer. I value kick fighting. If you come to kickboxing, you only throw your hands. You're good. You might knock people out, but you have to mix it up. Show me some kicks to be that completeness. And I think Vakhitov brings that completeness that's better than anyone.
Yeah,
but now you ask me who my favorite fighter and exciting to watch is. It's Swips, Now I have to probably say it's Alex Pereira.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, it's just so exciting to watch. He's knocking everybody out. I want to see him. It's funny. I want to see him go up. And if you listen back to the podcast with Todd, who do you think Todd said should fight? You thought Botter would even be a fight for Pereira. So you got to think that man has the potential to fight so many people with that natural ability to, put people to bed.
Well, the question is, can Pereira, connect with Vakhitov? Because Vakhitov, like you said, is such a smart fighter, and I don't think Vakhitov is going to go in there and try to I think Vahhitov's like a really smart fighter. Whether or not his hand can hold up, but other than that, Pereira has to connect to win this fight. I think, because when it comes to sheer volume and it comes to just if this goes 3 rounds, I mean, if Vakhitov doesn't get hurt, there's a possibility he can take it from that. I mean, Vahitov's not a knockout guy.
Yeah.
Right? He has 3 knockouts in 11 fights in Glory. So he's not like a knockout guy, but that's where I think is fascinating. Pereira's a scary guy, and personally, on my opinion, I pick Pereira because I love Pereira.
Yeah.
But I'm not going to write off Vahytov. I really think Vahytov still has a really good chance to win this fight.
100%. I think his biggest chance is the kick fight.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Vahytov's got some good low kicks.
Yeah,
I mean, Vahytov's got some good low kicks. I'm pretty sure he finished Zach Makaza with low kicks.
Did he really?
Yeah, so I mean, he's got to be able to sit in there and keep chopping away. I think the big kryptonite to Pereira, I feel, is the low kicks. Maybe the calf kick, maybe that calf kick with Pereira's long legs,
And boxing eccentric
style. Maybe slightly bladed, but the scary thing is trying to kick that man with his counter punches. Yeah. Good luck, But I think Vahytov is good pressure on the inside. Mm-hmm. The one area that scares me with Vahytov sometimes is he'll sit shelled up sometimes in mid-range, where I think Pereira is really good at maybe mixing an uppercut or some knees up the middle. Could be dangerous, but it's going to be the factor to me is how good is Vahytov's hands. If Vahytov's hand is good, because in his last fight he had to switch southpaw a little bit. When he fought Abena, he went southpaw a little bit. Yeah. So how could you fight southpaw against a big puncher if your defense isn't there? So there's so many variables that have to do with the hand for me that I don't know. There's so many questions that will be answered in a week.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Where does Pereira go after this? Like after he beats the champ right now, Vahytov, where does he go after this? Do you think he should go something like heavyweight?
I think fun things for him is try to get super fights maybe for him.
Right.
Maybe get some super fights to build him as a superstar. I think that's the key now. Build him as a superstar. Could be fun maybe to find another guy from another organization to bring in, or an old UFC fighter who is maybe known for striking. I can't think of anyone at the top of my head, but something like that to build his superstar status. And I think this fight here is big in Europe, but I think to make him that global superstar, we got to bring him a little bit into the North America side.
Yeah. And maybe even build up his MMA a little bit. I know he's been interested in that.
Yeah.
And we all know, look, his past fight with Adesanya and beating Adesanya, who's a big star right now. It'd be a great storyline for him down the road.
And the other fight I keep forgetting because it feels like it's happened already because we talked about it so long. Is Myrtle
versus Doumbé.
Yeah. I mean that's one I'm really, really excited for. If I had to rate the excitement level, I would probably put number one of excitement. I would have to say Pereira Vahytov. 1, 2. I would say Doumbé.
I agree.
Yeah. Then 3, I would probably put Rico Gerges up there. But I would say, I'm going to say it, but I'm probably tied for 3 because I'm pretty excited to see Alina Pereira versus Tiffany Mansur.
I was going to put that as my 3.
I have to tie that because I like it because Rico Hesdy has beef. I like beef, especially Hesdy yelling. He was like, basically, the beef started it was pretty funny to me. I thought it was funny. Todd thought it was funny too. I'll throw him under the bus with me. But like Rico's doing a press conference and Glory posted, and all of a sudden you hear Hesdy from the back going, "Hey Rico, F you, Rico," and he just yells from the back, and then Rico's Mr. Calm, Mr. Respectful, Mr. Class and Sportsman gets up and starts yelling, screaming, "Let's fight!" Dennis Crowell gets on the mic saying, "Listen, we're sportsmen. Let's get into this ring, and we'll beat your ass in the ring." Hype. I like the beef, because part of me is like, I need to see a technical fight. So this is where Pereira and I'm all intrigued in the X's and O's, the details of that fight, but beef is beef, As a fan, beef is beef, right?
That's true. It creates a story. Yeah,
creates a story. I like to see a little bit. As a fan, I like to see a little bit of both sides. So that's why it's ranked. But I think Tiffany versus Alina Pereira is one. It's close, honestly. I might even have to edge that closer to that Doumbé fight, man. But Doumbé is definitely second for me.
Yeah. I mean, with the beef going on with Doumbé and Grunhart, the question for me in this fight is, can Doumbé keep his emotional calm? Like he looked very, like he admitted it, he looked very like antsy in his last fight. Yeah. This has got so much riding on it. Yeah. This long beef and the back and forth on social media. Yep. Can he be the Doumbé, that calm Doumbé, when the fight starts? Is the question.
I just like it. I think we did a pre-fight. Todd and I did a pre-fight glory show, hyping up that fight. And I think what makes their fight so good is not only their skills in the ring, because one, they can both knock you out. They're both unorthodox. But the fact that they're both entertainers and they're both willing to entertain the fight outside.
Yeah.
So you see like the hashtags, like Myrtle's got take your belt 2 times because Myrtle beat, you got to think, Myrtle beat Doumbé, took his title from the first time. So he's got the take your belt 2 times. Doumbé is saying pray for Myrtle too, making fun of his pants. I mean, it's crazy, man. Doumbé is honestly, that's one guy you don't want to get into like social media beef with because he's too good.
He'll just clown you.
He clowns you the whole time. He's good at it. He's good at getting in your head. So, I'm sold on that fight. It's supposed to happen a few times. It's supposed to happen last show. So
it's finally gonna happen.
It's gotta happen.
Please, let it happen.
It's gotta happen finally. Like let it out. Like don't let me wait anymore. This is over.
Yeah. Because the thing is, like, for me, is like if Grudenhart, I feel like Grudenhart works or he fights well when he's kind of wild. Yeah. You know, he's kind of out there. When he does his jumping knees and stuff like that, like that's what makes him so good, his style. So even if Grudenhart was emotional going in, which he never really is, he's always nice and loosey-goosey, but even if it were to take over, it kind of works with his style. Whereas Doumbé, I feel, you know, he's better when he's technical, when he's smart. Yeah. He's dangerous when he's smart. You know, I don't think he should be swinging the way he did against Gaji with Grudenhart in the first round.
Yeah. But look what Haru Gregorian did. Yeah. He pushed Myrtle against the ropes and started swinging power punches, and he caught him. You know, that's true. I mean, I think to beat Myrtle, you got to pressure him. You have to pressure him. I don't think you can sit out there in space and let Myrtle hit you and angle and move. Nope, you got to pressure him, chop his legs away, and just beat him up on the inside, or try to, anyways, without eating those big knees and weird, unorthodox angled shots. So, gonna be a wicked fight. One I'd recommend people to catch tune on. It's the prelims, which end up going on. They ended up playing on YouTube. Garrick Belay versus E-Tiger Sean.
I love that fight.
Just check it out. Yeah. I mean, I won't overhype it, but E-Tiger Sean, fun to watch. So good, Garrick Belay, he's one of the toughest Frenchmen I've seen. Sits in the pocket, bangs. Kind of, if you watch back his old fights, it's always about me talking about, like, make sure you kind of watch him. He kind of fights like Bazooka Joe, punch, low kicks, attack the legs, you know. So keep an eye out for him. I think it's going to be a very exciting fight.
And let's circle back to Van Zeus versus Pereira. This is a huge fight for Aline. That's how you say it, Aline. Aline. Obviously, she came off a huge knockout over Crystal Lawson in like 11 seconds. She beats someone like Tiff. I mean, that catapults her right up to the top of, makes her the champion. Yeah. so, I mean, that's pretty big, and her path being champion that fast is pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's impressive.
That's very, very impressive. What does she need to beat Tiff? Because Tiff is obviously a very, very durable, very, very versatile fighter. Yeah. What does she need to do to beat Tiff?
With Tiffany's, it's all about movement, angles, in and out, create, move, be unorthodox, you know, which she calls her footwork, poetry, and motion, which I like. It's a cool way of phrasing it, because she moves really well. Pereira has that frame, long, rangy, snappy, long. So I think she just needs to kind of keep Tiff at the end of her punches, try not to overcommit, and just try to pop her at the end until landing one of her tough straight punches. I think that's the key. I mean, just try to stay at the end of the jab and just keep away. And maybe use feints, try to bait her into something, because Tiffany has to hit and move and close so much distance to hit her. So if Alina can use her straight punches to keep Tiff away, then it's a good chance for her. But we got to forget, yes, Alina's scary. Her brother, Tiff's been around for a long time.
She's been the best for so long.
And fought Anissa Mexen multiple times and did well and has wins from her. And like, she's fought the top of the world. She's been on the top of the North American Muay Thai kickboxing scene for times. But if anyone can do it now, and I have to pick up girls with, you know, Alina Pereira. Nothing to lose. Yeah. Straight, strong, power. She's also fought, Pereira's fought girls with more experience than her. So she's ready to go. And watch her and Alex Pereira spar.
Yeah, they go at each other.
I don't think Alex takes it easy on her at all. Think so. I think Alex tries to knock her out, and it's sister and brother rivalry. Yeah. It's like me and my sister. My sister and I used to scrap at Taekwondo, and we'd scrap at home, so we got double training, you know? Yeah. So it's exactly like me and my sister growing up. But yeah, she's gonna do well. So I'm really excited for that card.
Yeah. I mean, overall, great card. Hopefully all the bouts come together.
Yeah, and I want to just make sure everyone support kickboxing. Come out. I mean, in order for the sport to keep growing, for us to put on these shows, to get more athletes on the cards, we need you guys jumping on this pay-per-view. I mean, it's important. It's very cheap, man. I think we're only $14.99 to get on it, to watch all these big title fights, to see Rico and everybody. So support it. Listen to me all night, watch some great fights, and let's support kickboxing, because it's a sport that deserves a lot of attention. Everybody loves it once they see the big fights. So support it, jump on it, and get the Glory Kickboxing pay-per-view this Saturday, January 30th.
Speaking of kickboxing, let's get to a couple of questions.
Ooh, question and answer time.
And the very first one actually has to do with calf kicks, and people say,
figured that would be a question.
Yeah, because especially now that we just saw the UFC, if calf kicks become a game changer in kickboxing. Do you agree with that?
Will they become a game changer if people start using them in kickboxing? This is going to be probably a long-winded answer, but I just think right away you have to understand the difference between the two sports and what happens. In MMA, you don't see low kicks and kicks as much. In kickboxing, you see it all the time. So understanding the range, the distance, the way to block them, how to slip, kind of kickboxers are going to have an advantage of it. Just using my experience, like I've sparred with multiple UFC guys from generations, so many years. The first thing I realized as a kickboxer, when we strike and we're doing our sparring, as soon as I hit legs, like a little low kick. It's almost like my jab, my feeler. As soon as I kick someone's leg, I've been kicking legs for years, so I kind of know how durable your leg is. So I'll hit it once, I'm like, I can finish that leg. Or he can take them. Like, you look back, like you go back and look at how many low kicks I gave Nicky Holtzkin. You go look back and give Kareem Gaji how many low kicks I gave him. There's no UFC guys who will be able to take that amount. Those guys had 100 kickboxing fights where they've taken hundreds of thousands of kicks, so their legs are strong and are durable to take it, and they've blocked them, and our stances are a little bit different. Where in MMA, you don't take that constant hitting of the leg, so your muscle doesn't have that endurance to be able to take them. Yeah. The problem is now with the calf kick is most people are conditioned from the knee to the hip. You don't really condition from the knee to the ankle. So it's always a little bit harder to kind of condition that. So now, knowing that it is a weapon, people need to start slowly hitting the calf muscle to kind of build in the endurance. So one, the nature of the sport and us being kickers our whole life, one, we are able to block them a little bit better. Our understanding of kick range and kick defense is a lot better. But the reason why I created a video on why calf kicks are so successful in mixed martial arts. It's because of the small gloves. So in kickboxing, you'll see a lot of good low kicks mixed with punches. That Dutch style, boom, 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 low kick. So it's almost catch, 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 block. You kind of know the rhythm, the cadence, and the timing and the range of the timing of the kicks. But in MMA now, with the small glove, a lot of guys tend to defend by pulling their head back. Right? So by pulling your head back, because it's a 4-ounce glove, you don't want to get hit with that glove. Where if you eat a bigger glove, you can use a wedge and your high guard to block. So block, and it's blocking. So, and I can block my head and I can block my leg kick in a nice stationary pillared position. Yeah. But now with the 4-ounce glove, as soon as I pull my head or I try to evade a punch by moving back, it leaves my lead leg there, which allows my opponent to hit it. So in order to evade those shots, you have to move your head and your foot almost at the same time just to avoid those, you know? Mm-hmm. But that Conor McGregor fight, what happened was Conor, as I mentioned, is in a bladed stance. And you're fighting southpaw versus southpaw in a bladed stance, right? The side stance. He has to turn his foot all the way here. It's too slow. You're not going to block that. So even if he turns halfway, it's still going to hit the tibialis anterior, and it's still going to hurt and shut down, or the soleus. It's going to shut down the leg no matter what. So it's harder to block based on stance, based on the range, because of the small gloves, and just not kicking as much. So I don't think that calf kicks will be a big weapon in kickboxing. Yeah. Okay. I think they're going to be more unique and more successful, and you're going to see them a lot when it comes to mixed martial arts, but I don't think they're going to be, I think they can be an effective weapon, but I don't think they're going to be a game changer. Right. Right? They're going to be very effective. You got to think, you're fighting someone really tall, you know, like one example, I think the only time we've really seen calf kicks being used, and I could be slightly wrong, but I think it was Josh Johnsey fighting Tijani Bestati. Josh Johnson, you know, a little shorter. Tijani really tall. And Tijani's got these big, you know, shins. So, I mean, I'm pretty sure it was Johnson attacking those. But I don't think you're going to get those finishes and shutting people down. But again, Conor McGregor is known as an elite striker, and he still got hurt by them.
Yeah.
But I personally think we're more experienced with kicks. We're more experienced with low kicks, kicking in general. And I don't think they're going to be a game changer. Just effective weapons.
Yeah, that makes sense. That
just
makes sense.
effective. Yeah.
Another question that came up has to do with the Philly shell.
Ooh.
And using the Philly shell in MMA and Muay Thai or kickboxing, I guess, sparring, and having to deal with kicks from that guard.
Okay.
What are some advices you can give to someone who uses Philly shell?
Damn, good question. That's a very good question. So I don't think you should have one guard in general. That's my big thing. Like, depending on what the fight is, a different guard is going to be better or worse. So if I'm fighting someone who's not kicking me, you know, I might be able to stand a little bit more bladed. Then I'll go into a Philly shell position because you're not kicking my lead leg. As soon as you kick my lead leg, I'm going to make an adjustment and keep my front foot pointing forward. Yeah. So it's the ability to adjust and adapt that makes it a little bit better. But the problem with the Philly shell is, one, the bladed foot, but the other thing is it leaves the one side, and you have to lean and move your head a little bit in the Philly shell, right? When you catch, these little catches where I'm turning are getting my head off center line sometimes. So if you start punching to kicks, it's a little bit more harder to block. So even if my hand is here, I can lift up and catch, but what happens now if the kick goes on the arm that's
Hits
down?
the arm, yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So one, my lead side calf is open, but this side is down. I could catch with this hand or use my shoulder to block, but that's dangerous. You got to think some of the biggest head cut knockouts happen when it hits the shoulder and skips off. Bang.
Bang.
So it
Hits off,
skips off the shoulder, hits off the temple, boom, you go out. So it's very dangerous to do with kicking that way. Can you slip and pull or pull and counter? Yes, there's ways it can work, but the key is if you do get hit from that position, you have to be able to adjust and adapt. So it is a little bit more dangerous to use the Philly shell in kickboxing because of the kicking, the bladed stance, and being able to block the body kicks, but it can be done. And just understanding if it doesn't work, you have to be able to do multiple stances. You can't just fight only Philly shell in kickboxing.
Yeah. So it's a lot like the calf kick. It's a valuable weapon, I guess, that you can use, but it's not something that you should depend on.
I think you can. I think it's more effective in MMA than it is in kickboxing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the reason why I say that is because, especially as a striker in MMA, I don't want to have my hands pinned on my head. Okay, with my hands pinned on my head, I can't parry punches, I can't catch, I can't grab. And by having this lead hand high, guess what? It leaves my lead leg and my body open for wrestlers to get under, shoot under, grab their body locks. I'm screwed. So I have to keep my lead hand out when I fight MMA. And when I do MMA, I like to almost do a Philly shell because I can hit up angles. And I can kind of I can sprawl better and I can hit on an up. So a wrestler has to come down. So by keeping my lead hand low, it scares the wrestler from dipping his head down. So it keeps the wrestler away from me, hits that up angle, and it helps me kind of use feinting and ranges a little bit more. So I would use my Philly shell in MMA more than I would in kickboxing. In kickboxing, it would be more of high guard attack, maybe drop it for a quick second to maybe create a different angled offense or something like that. So kickboxing, I feel it's more effective when you use it to adapt and switch to kind of confuse your opponents, where MMA, I think it can be more of a structured stance to actually compete in more often. If that makes any sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. And let's get into another question here. Actually talking about someone wants you to do a video on a strategy that when fighting someone like Adesanya, like a strategy against someone like an Adesanya who is an elite striker.
Okay. We'll do a video. We have to do a video on it, but I like Israel too much to make a video on how to beat Israel Adesanya. Yeah. I did one on Wonderboy, but I don't know Wonderboy. Yeah. And the funny thing is everyone who fights Wonderboy watches that video, and Aaron Bronsteter always tells them, hey, make sure you go watch Bazooka Joe's video on how to beat Wonderboy. Yeah. And he's supposed to send it to me, and we'll see if he'll do it, okay? Well, he has a clip of him asking Wonderboy Thompson if he's seen the video
really?
that I made on how to beat him.
We're in quarantine right now for the next little bit. I've got a little bit of homework for you. So I do a podcast, and my co-host's name is Bazooka Joe Valtellini. Do you know who he is?
Bazooka Joe? Yeah, I know Bazooka Joe.
So he recorded a video on his YouTube channel called How to Beat Stephen Wonderboy Thompson. He beat Raymond Daniels, and he thinks that there's a blueprint for how to beat you. I would love for you to watch this video and try to find a flaw in his argument, or maybe use it as fuel to take what your opponent's game plan might be and turn it on them. Do you think you'd be able to do that?
I think so. I can do my best. I mean, I like breaking fighters down and things like that, so I think it's fun.
Were you aware of this video at all?
I think somebody had tagged me in it. I didn't actually watch all the way through it because, you know, you can go out there and you can face somebody like myself or Michael Page Venom or anybody, Raymond Daniels, and think that you got a game plan for it. Obviously, he's a Muay Thai stylist and he used his leg kicks, obviously, to great effect against Raymond Daniels. But it's a different style. Once you actually go out there and feel the style, it's completely different. There's a lot of guys that have prepared for me and brought in karate fighters to prepare for me. But once you step out there, it's definitely totally different. It's a different feel.
But yeah, so I think with him, it's to beat Israel Adesanya, I really feel you have to be almost a better striker than him, which is very, very rare, very unlikely. But who's the one person who could be a better striker than him? Alex Pereira. Right. I don't think there's anyone in the UFC that can handle the stand-up fight IQ that Israel Adesanya brings. Mm-hmm. He's too sharp. His counters, his eyes, his distance control, his anti-wrestling is phenomenal right now. His ability to get off the cage and not get taken down is great. So I think you need to be as good, or if not a better striker, to beat him. Is Pereira a better striker than him? You can't say yes, because Pereira knocked out Izzy. But the problem is, Izzy was beating him up the whole time, and then it was the one shot. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like, I don't know if Pereira's a better striker than him. So I think, but it's going to take someone of that level and that caliber to be able to push Adesanya. You can't just go in there, and you have to be able to deal with his tactics, his traps. You know, he's pulling you into things to time you, you know. So how would I beat him? I would beat him with low kicks, a lot of feinting to get him to react, because I know he's trying to counter me. So I would use kicks on angles and a lot of pressure fighting. I'd have to pressure him, move him backwards, and then keep chopping the leg. That would be my strategy, but you have to be confident to do that. And I don't think a lot of fighters are confident pressuring someone who's hands down, someone who's got the Philly shell, someone who's baiting you in with pull counters. You know, you have to be able to almost crash that distance, control their hands, chop the legs, and kind of stay in their face, which is hard against someone so surgeon like.
Yeah, and he has this like weird where he can lean almost all the way back and still throw that hook and knock you out.
Yeah, but that's where you feint, let him lean, and you chop his leg.
You got it, that's the only way to
kick the lead leg. You got to take his lead leg home. Yeah. He switches stances to southpaw. Guess what? You go southpaw, kick his lead leg. He goes orthodox. You go orthodox, kick his lead leg. Yeah. Don't stay on open stance with him, because he's got that range and he's going to drive his rear straight. You match his stance, you take his low kick is your only chance. Yeah. Feint, hands, pro punches, boom, hit the calf on his exit move. If he crashes distance, you crash distance with him, clinch up with the hands, and that's your only chance.
Yeah. It's all theory. It's easier said than done, right?
Yeah.
At the end of the
day. You got to fight.
You got to still fight. Yeah.
It's almost like the war, I was watching, I don't know what it shows. I was watching this Italian show on Netflix, Saburo or something like that.
Yeah.
Saburo. And one of them, it's like the season finale. The guy looks at his buddy, because there's like a big gunfight going on. He's like, "We'll see you, my friend." And he kind of runs out, takes all the shots. You got to be able to sacrifice yourself is basically what I'm trying to get to. Basically run in, doom, eat a shot, eat a kick, slip a knee. Hey, you made it inside, now go, you risk yourself to get in, but when you get in, you go with everything. And then still, a Whitaker still did it and still got caught and countered. So, I mean, it's... you're fighting one of the best strikers of all time, man.
Yeah, that's stand-up combat. That's the thing with kickboxing, is as technical as it is, there's an element of toughness that you have to that has to be almost embedded in you. You can't teach it.
Yeah. And the one thing you'll notice about Adesanya is when you meet him in person, just big, tall, and he's a lot bigger than you think.
Yeah.
He's a lot bigger than you think. So I think that's why I'm saying maybe that one day I was hoping to see that John Jones fight, but It would be a fun fight, but I just think Jones is way too big now, and now he's hitting like 240. I think
he's going
he's
to
too
heavyweight.
big.
Yeah,
but that would have been a fight I really would have liked to have seen. Both very intelligent strikers.
Yeah, because Jones has matured a lot as a striker as well.
Big time.
Yeah, he's become a lot smarter. So let's get into the final question here, and it's more like a fun question, I guess. You can say, is Askren versus Jake Paul? Someone brought up.
Askren versus Jake Paul.
If Ben Askren were to fight Jake Paul in a boxing match.
Oh, who would win in a boxing match?
In a boxing match.
Yeah, I remember seeing that. I, honestly, I don't know enough about Askren striking to give that answer. But to be honest, as a mixed martial artist, hands down, it's Askren. But straight boxing, probably Jake Paul.
Yeah.
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 It's like, I think he trains it more. He competes it more. He's younger. He's not a boxer. Like, he doesn't really punch. Yeah. And if it is to close distance. So not the best of examples, but I honestly think Jake Paul could fight someone a lot better of a striker than that. Like, I can guarantee you he'll probably hang with some, pro MMA guys, like younger, better boxing oriented guys.
I just don't love it because I don't think Askren, no disrespect to him, I don't think he represents because in a sense people see this as like MMA versus boxing.
Yeah, no, he represents wrestling.
He represents wrestler. He's an elite wrestler. Yeah. Right? I don't think he should be the one representing boxing for MMA. In my opinion.
I don't think so.
I think that's why I don't love it.
No, I don't think so.
But I don't disagree with you. I think Jake Paul. Again, who knows?
Yeah,
right. It's one of those things. It's a fun question.
Hypothetical
theory. People you have to see it. To find out.
I'm all in for those lately. It was fun. I just what I like and I don't like about it. I think it brings eyes to the sport of boxing right now. But what I think it does is it really devalues what fighters do.
I agree.
I don't love it. And I think that's how people get hurt.
Yeah.
I don't agree with any of these promotional fighting things. I know a lot of times around the world they do these, they call like agency fights, business wars, where they get just regular business people and workers and they put them into fights. And it's like, why?
Yeah.
You're taking a sport and making it like, I know you're trying to introduce it, but if someone's never gotten into a fight or never trained, they're training for a month, and then you're putting them with people cheering and yelling and they're going to start hitting each other. That's how you get concussions. You don't know how to brace yourself for a punch. You work. Do you need to go to work with a concussion the next day? Why do you have to put people to get hurt when they don't know how to do it? And it kind of is like, oh, anybody can fight. Just go fight, Hey, let's go fight. It's not about fighting. It's a sport. We're well trained. We do it with sport. We do it with class. We train and we prepare for it. We do it as a living. We're not doing it for a one time. Hey, I did it. Now I'm gonna have brain damage for the rest of my life because I did it one. No, that bothers me. That's how people get hurt, and that's just what takes people away from the sport.
Yeah. Which is why I didn't really love the Nate Robinson fight, him going in there.
But he's an athlete at least,
He is, but I was like, come on. You even see him in there, it's like, that's not, he shouldn't be in there.
And then he got hurt for what? He got
hurt.
But okay, hurt for what? Lots of money, so it's kind of worth it.
He did get paid.
He got a payday out of it. So, there is good. I just don't like to see people get hurt just to say that they did it. Everyone can shoot a basketball, but doesn't mean we should all play basketball. Right. Everyone can throw a baseball, doesn't mean I should go and pitch on TV somewhere. No one wants to see it, but anyways. But True. It's just fun. I'm just happy we got this done, Danny. Mm-hmm. Still, happy to announce that the heat here at Bazooka Kickboxing will be fixed hopefully tomorrow.
Freezing.
The funny thing is, can I tell people now? It is so cold that I have a heater beside me, and I even bought myself. I brought myself my blanket from home that nobody can see, but I was freezing, and I did not want to sit here and keep freezing. So I brought my blanket from home, and I'm ready to go.
Sick.
But I'm just gonna wrap up here.
Yeah.
So just thanks everybody for continuing to watch, support. I'm gonna rock the blanket.
You look like one of those Roman
Vikings
emperor.
Now. I'm going with the Viking style, my Viking style. But yes, thanks everyone for appreciating the channel, the comments. I think Danny's been feeling the love, which is nice, and this is why we're still doing them. Again, hope you guys liked having Aaron Bronsteter on. Continue to listen to us on the TSN MMA show because we do weekly episodes. I try to do this channel more on technical stuff than fight talk, but I think once a week. I love talking fighting, so I'm going to give you guys hopefully one a week show. Like, subscribe, share it to your friends. It's not growing as fast as I like, people. Let's get it growing a little bit faster for me. The goal is at 100K. So help me get there so I can sit there with that YouTube plaque and be proud about it and happy. And I'm going to put it on my Bazooka wall here, and we'll get it nicely. So thank you, and we'll see you next time.